Hey everyone, welcome to Founders 365 with me, Stephen Haggerty. Today, I'm joined by Ian Magley, founder of EastMain Digital Marketing. How are you today, Ian?
Good. How are you? Great to be here.
I am very well. Thank you for being here. And
Absolutely.
I think we should let everyone know that, for you, it's 6 a.m.
Yes.
and you're doing this podcast on a Saturday. Some may question your sanity for this. Others may just say, hey, man, you're a trooper.
Sure.
But I really appreciate this, and I really appreciate you coming on at 6 a.m.
No, absolutely. You'll find out with my backstory. I actually come from the bakery industry, so this is normal to me.
This is like lunchtime for you. Then.
Exactly right.
So this brings me on to my first question. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about EastMain Digital, and what you guys are doing at the moment.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So. As you mentioned, my agency, digital marketing agency, is EastMain Digital Marketing. We're in New Jersey, and right now it's obviously there's a lot of change in the world, but fortunately we've been staying nice and busy and been able to pivot and kind of adapt to somewhat of the new normal and help our clients do so as well. But just kind of going back into my story a little bit, I actually, like I mentioned, I started in the food industry. In the restaurant and bakery industry when I was about 3.5, 4 years old. My parents started a small bakery in northern New Jersey, and so I literally grew up in the back of a bakery. It started really small and then expanded a little bit. They were always small business, and so I grew up in small business and got to see really the inner workings. Right there. And, I saw the challenges as well. But I always knew that I loved, by growing up in that, being an entrepreneur and, small business. And so I knew that I wanted to do that at some point. I played sports my whole life, and I played baseball in college. So I didn't get a chance to work in the business too much. I helped out when I could. But when I graduated and I went for marketing, when I graduated, I joined the business for what I thought was going to be about a month. I was, I was looking for my real job, So joined the business to wait and kind of see what opened up, and ended up really liking it. And my parents made an unbelievable product, but they never marketed it. They never really did anything from that standpoint. So I was 21 years old and was able to jump right into basically almost like a CMO type position, and created their first website, created their first brochures, sales lists. And I went out and I beat the pavement too. We had a wholesale side of the business. So I actually went out and did sales and got us new accounts. And, eventually we kind of hit a ceiling. We grew for a little bit, and we ended up opening up retail locations.
Amazing. What did your parents think when you came back from college, 21 years old, started in the family business, and you went, I'm going to do the marketing side of this. I'm going to make you guys a website. I'm going to show you this whole nother avenue of sales that you can do.
They told me to get away as fast as I could. They said, you don't want anything to do with the food industry. And I will say that in many regards, they were right. I was there for about 16 years. But that's actually what they said. But once they saw that, it really made a difference, and I wasn't going to get kind of bogged down in the back. I'm not a baker. I'm not I shouldn't have been anywhere near the kitchen, which was much better for the business. Yeah. So, so once they saw that, I had that role and was able to help them grow, then it became much more, apparent that, made sense, and it helped everybody out, and it got us to a point again where, we were able to expand and expand pretty well.
Which is amazing. And then, so you were there for 16 years. What made you leave? What made you want to go off and venture on your own?
Sure. So yes, so not only were we there 16 years, but we grew. We opened up actually 10 locations. We franchised, and so we had quite a bit of success, and there's some ups and downs to that as well. But we did. My parents were older. Unfortunately, there was some health health issues side of it as well, and we had the opportunity to sell about 4 years ago. Right. And at that point, as we had that opportunity, I that's when I knew that my next step was in what I did best. And so as we grew and we had 10 locations and all that, I did all the marketing to the sales, business development, and knew that I wanted to get into marketing and do that for other businesses. A lot of the stuff that we did for ourselves. So I jumped into that, and originally it was a little bit of a trying to figure out what we did, what was where the focus was going to be. Started with the food industry naturally, but it really knew that there was, or I knew that there was more that I could help, and we created some really nice programs for many different industries.
How did it feel when you started your own thing rather than obviously working within the family business, whereas EastMain Digital is like your baby?
Yeah, that's a great question. It was good. It was good in many ways. We're a laid back family. So it wasn't like there was a whole lot of, we wouldn't have been a very good reality show.
Keeping up with the Magleys.
Yes. But for the most part, it was good because there was, then it was more my passion. I mean, I loved what I did within that business, but the food industry is really, really tough. We had, each location had 20, 25 employees, mostly very young and, very flighty. So in that food industry and it's you've got a lot more moving parts. So, being able to do this and work home for the most part. I do have an office, but we're so our clients were all over the place. So, being able to see the family, I've got a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old. So, being able to spend a lot more time with them and coach and all that other stuff made it, a lot. It's just much, they're still very busy and you're still doing a lot, but
yeah,
it's definitely an easier industry, and that was a nice move.
Excellent. That's really nice to hear. So let's talk about the fact that you're running a digital marketing agency, and I think anyone can confirm that it seems that everybody is either doing digital marketing or thinking about doing digital marketing. Do you find that in terms of, so that's from me looking on from the outside in, right? But from the inside, do you find it a noisy place in terms of competitors and who's coming up in the market?
100%. And, that was the most difficult part of getting going, was how do you differentiate? That industry, kind of like you said, is almost commoditized at this point, right? It's like basically who can charge the least, if you don't have something that really differentiates you. And, yeah. So for the first couple of years, it was a little bit tough, in that respect. It was really just outworking people or having, some specialty knowledge in like the food industry or the franchise industry, since we franchise. So I was able to kind of utilize that. Two things really changed, though, that allowed us to really prosper. And the first is I joined Digital Marketer and became a Digital Marketer certified partner. So I don't know if you're aware, digitalmarketer.com and Ryan Dice and all those guys. And that was really helpful because it really gave me a little bit of a focus, kind of a community, and the ability to really start to see a lot of what others were doing and start to, define my message. But even at that, it was the same stuff, right? It was the same Facebook ads, AdWords, SEO,
You're not
same
reinventing the wheel, right? Yes,
right. Exactly. So, so I had an opportunity about 11 months ago now, actually. So my first agency. So this is what this is probably something I didn't put in there, but I actually sold my first agency about 11 months ago. Mm-hmm. It was good, growing, good size, and I had a larger local agency had reached out and inquired about acquiring, and I said I was in a position at that point where I was like, all right, I kind of knew that I hit a little bit of a ceiling. I really have to make a bigger investment in team and some other stuff, and it worked out really well and made a lot of sense. But what was great about that was it also gave me an opportunity to kind of take a step back.
Yeah. And
so I stayed with him about a couple months to kind of help transition. And during that period, I instead of being in it every single day, I was more, I got to see a higher level and saw what a lot of the agencies are doing, right? And it's the same stuff. And a lot of them just get bogged down in the commoditized component to it. And what I noticed and what I realized and what I've known for quite some time was what differentiates the bigger agencies, the better agencies, and also the agencies or the businesses that are doing well with their agencies, with their marketing, is data, access to data. And so I took a period and I actually just I really dug deep into in-market targeting, intent-based marketing, in-market marketing, those type of things, or in-market targeting, identity resolution, and really understanding how to understand or give our clients the ability to have their own first-party data, not always have to buy Facebook's data or Google's data, right? That's when I started to actually I licensed into what's called identity graphs, and I might get a little technical here because this is what we've been
technical
doing.
You want.
But it's been awesome. Like, this is what has transformed and totally differentiated what we're doing right now. So I took that period late last fall and into the winter last year, where I just went heavy into big data for small business, right? Because that's what I saw, right? I saw small businesses doing the same thing. They're putting out Facebook ads, they're putting out AdWords, they're doing SEO. Some get a little more out of them, right? And you can, maybe find a sweet spot here and there, but for the most part, you're just buying and buying and buying, and you're just, you're just hoping that Facebook will deliver for you. So we licensed into identity graphs. We licensed into some pretty big data opportunities, and it was a pretty big leap of faith, having really not many clients at that time because I was just starting back up.
Yeah.
And first, the intent was actually to basically sell the data to the clients, allow them to basically use it. So we created basically what's called a smart pixel. Identity resolution pixel allows us to identify those who are coming to the website, but also we use that to target as well, create advanced lookalike audiences, do behavioral modeling, some other stuff. So when I realized that this data had no use to people who didn't know how to use it, it was like, that's great, that it sounds really cool, but what do I do with it?
Yeah.
So that's when I kind of started the agency back up, and we started to do some really advanced level marketing in various forms and platforms. So now basically we're what I call a data-driven performance marketing agency. Our primary focus is paid traffic, but we do it on an omnipresence level. So we do Facebook, Google, and programmatic, but we use our data to help our clients get really laser targeted, identify those who are coming to their website, create behavioral modeling, advanced lookalike audiences, and some other stuff that's really separated us right now.
How do you make sure that your clients are not overwhelmed with that information? Because I feel like data, everyone kind of knows that data is, it's almost like, the cash is king, data is king in the digital world.
Right.
But there's very few people, and actually you're probably one of the first marketing agencies that I've spoken to that put such an emphasis on data, which is fantastic. But how do you make sure that is educated across to your clients so they understand, actually, look, this is why we're different, this is why data is so important?
Yeah, it's a great question, because it was a difficult part of kind of transitioning to that, because it wasn't just like, hey, we're going to run Facebook ads and we're going to get you leads. It's like, we're going to get into these identity graphs, we're going to create cryptographic hash, pull that information, create behavioral, so it was like, when I first started doing it, it was like, okay.
Yeah.
But so I did realize that two things. Number one, keep it to, hey, we're going to use the main platforms. We're still going to have Google for you. We're still going to have Facebook. We're still going to drive in traffic. We're still going to have some of the, many of the metrics that you're used to. You're going to see pretty quickly that by two things. Number one, having the ability to micro target based on intent and in-market activity and in-market behavior. And then when you start to see that we're going to get you, if you've got 5,000 people a month coming to your website, and we're giving you 3,000 email addresses versus the 200 you're getting right now per month, you're going to see some quick results. And, that's basically, and for the most part, like 90% were like, great, let's do it. And didn't want to get into the, to the details too much. And then, maybe 10% would be interested in getting a little more technical. I definitely can get technical on when, when we're having meetings and calls, and sometimes I have to reel myself back where I see the, kind of glaze over. But, for the most part though, it was, we work with small, medium-sized businesses. And, I basically, kind of the mission, if you will, or the vision of restarting the agency using data as the primary focus was, we're going to do it at a very reasonable rate. So it's not going to be like, it sounds really big and here's some crazy number. It's like, it's really not going to cost you more than what you're doing. You're just going to get a whole lot more, and then we're going to grow it together. We're going to see it and let it scale.
Why do you think other marketing agencies are not doing that approach? They're doing the much more generic, have a really good copy, define your audience, get leads.
Right. I think the first is the same reason I did in my past agency, was you get so deep into what you're doing, you so bogged down with just daily operations, right? And just trying to keep current clients happy, keep your team going, make sure you got the right team. Do you have everything in house? Are you doing, outsourcing? And then you got to figure out if finding the right, freelancers, whatever. All that stuff just keeps you so bogged down for 10, 12 hours a day as an agency owner that it's really hard to make, adjustments. So I think that's a lot of what happens. And so I had the unique opportunity to having been acquired, where I got to take a step back and then, see that. And I also took, a bit of a leap of faith in it, because it was, costly, and, it was costly before I had new revenue coming in. So, it's not something I think for the, the faint of heart as well, especially, but I think coming from, business owner background for so many years, I'm used to those risks a little bit more than most.
In terms of data, then, let's talk about the current situation in terms of marketing, in terms of COVID. What do you think is going to change moving forward in terms of how people market their businesses and obviously themselves and all their brands?
Yeah, sure. So, we've been fortunate with this to have something that differentiates us, and that's really been helpful. And so my message to our clients and any leads and prospects, and been able to do a couple marketing summits and some other stuff too, is the importance of having your first party data, right? So, and this is has kind of brought it to the forefront and, made it so apparent. And so it makes it an easy message. Essentially, is like, imagine if you had, 100,000 or 150,000 email addresses. You had advanced lookalike audiences in your Facebook, in your Facebook, ads account, and your, AdWords. You had your own built out audiences. Now you're just retargeting or sending a new message to, versus, oh shoot, what am I going to do? And now you're just buying Facebook's data and Google's data, and it's costing you a lot, and you're spinning tires right now, right? Like, so what we're saying is right now is a time, maybe people aren't buying as much, maybe people aren't going, if you're a retail, in particular, maybe people aren't, obviously you're restricted, but this is the time to build audiences, to build data, build your own database, so that when you open, or if you have something, or if you've went online, maybe you pivoted to go into e-com, you have your own built-in audience to market to. And that is extremely powerful, versus like, all right, I'm just starting, I've created this online store, or I'm opening back up, or whatever, and you've got nobody to market to. You've got to go buy this data. You've got to go on Facebook and just start from scratch. And by not having that audience, by not having that data, you're way behind a lot of people who have said, all right, I'm going to build this stuff up over the last X amount of, period. So, people right now who've got, hundreds of thousands or even tens of thousands email in their email, and, and other audiences in their ad platforms have such an advantage.
Yeah. How do we change the mindset of consumers in terms of purchasing ads, like Facebook ads, to that more data-driven, your method, and because otherwise it's always going to be the same way, right? So where do we need to intercept that person who wants more leads, to be able to educate them in the sense where, actually, what, if you own your data, if you're doing it that way, you're much better off?
Well, there's a couple ways. So the first is, we actually kind of try to wean people off. I guess I don't know if that's the right word, but we kind of pull them back of the idea that you have to just put a lot of money into Facebook and Google and stuff. And the first way we do that is, we call it omnipresence or omnichannel marketing. So we use a programmatic approach as well. Programmatic is essentially just what it sounds. It's a program, right? So it's AI, it's machine learning, where you can place ads based on where people are actually online, right? So, crazy stat is that people are online on average. This was going back a few months ago, so it might be a little bit different now, but on average about 5 hours and 54 minutes per day.
It's definitely gone up.
Yes, I'm sure it has. So this is going back before so I'm sure the data is there, the information is a little bit different, but, still on average, let's say it's like 6.5 hours, right? Yeah. At that point, people were only going to Google for about 8 minutes a day, 8 to 10 minutes a day, because you go there for just one reason. It's really focused, right? You're not hanging out on Google. On Facebook, you hang out a little bit more. On Instagram, they were there for about 45 minutes to an hour. That might have gone up a little bit. And there's other platforms, TikTok and some other stuff that's getting a lot of, but still, that's a lot of online real estate that people are not focused on, right? So how we kind of explain it to our clients is, regardless of the period, we kind of call it piercing the pandemic, right? So it's, you get through this and, whatever the new normal is, you still have to be able to be omnipresent. You still have to be everywhere, but you need to know who you're going after. So what we focus on is, let's say somebody goes online and searches Audi A6, right? I'm going to use cars because, car manufacturers have used this approach for many, many years. They've had the data to do so. Goes on Audi A6, right? That person that's an in-market behavior, that's created. If you go on and search Audi A6, you probably have an intent to maybe buy that car or a similar car, right? So that starts to create intent for a higher end vehicle, a better vehicle, whatever it might be. That person might not go on Facebook, right? Might not go back to Google, but they might go to ESPN.com or CNN.com, or they might use Snapchat, or they might use the weather app, right? Those are all the places where we want to make sure we're focusing our marketing on, and placing those ads. And so that's what we kind of work with. And, so we explain to, whether it's now, whether it's later, you need to be omnipresent with where your consumers are, knowing and exactly who your audience is.
Amazing. Do you come across many objections or any fears that are quite common when you start speaking to your new customers?
Number one is always cost. And then number two,
it sounds so much bigger. Right. It sounds like you're gonna take a $600 budget and make it a $6,000 budget.
Yeah, so that's definitely one. The other one is our identity resolution. So we have an identity resolution pixel, which literally is attached to these identity graphs. And when people come to the website, we can actually resolve the identity of usually about 50 to 60, maybe sometimes 70% of the people who come to the website, which means that even if they don't opt in, we can grab their email address, name and phone number, and even LinkedIn profile. So we get a lot of questions of, is that legal? Is that above board? And it 100% is. So we've worked with quite a few lawyers. We've got all the disclaimers and the privacy policy information, all opt-out information and that type of stuff. So those are really the two biggest ones. Price is one, and there definitely is a minimum that we work within, but it's usually, as long as they can put forth about $1,000 to $1,500 a month towards ad spend, we can make it work. So if it's less than that, it's, even with our data, it's, it's going to take a lot more time, and we know, they're not quite ready for what we can do at that point.
But like you said, you're yielding completely different results from most marketers,
right?
Which is great in terms of that original question, in the sense of how do you make yourself different?
Right.
You can compare yourself to someone that can get you 1,000 leads or 3,000 leads.
Right.
And who do you want to go with, right? The 1,000 or the 3,000?
Right.
Obviously, 3,000. Ian, I feel like we could chat about data all day long. Right. And I am super interested in just terms how you've come across this, and the way you've described it is perfect. But one of my final questions to you is, if you could give advice to someone that is, doing all right, already spending a decent chunk of cash on Facebook ads, paid marketing, what would be your advice to them if they wanted to do like a little bit more data, but perhaps not at that stage where they like hire you, for example, but they want to understand their data more?
Yeah, so it's a little bit tough just because nobody really has. There's very few. I shouldn't say nobody. Very few people have in the smaller space that identity resolution tool and some of that ability to capture the data, that we do. That being said, there's certainly ways that they can do so. And number one, 100% is make sure your website, landing page, funnel, whatever it is super focused on capturing a micro conversion, right? And getting that that initial micro conversion where you're at least getting their name and their email address, right? Building an email address. I mean, a lot of people, talk about email's dead and everything's switching. It's not dead, and it's not even going to be close to dead. I mean, people use email all day long. Open rates could be a little bit lower, and I mean, obviously there's some things, but if you have that, that's number one. Just super important to be able to at least build that up, right? So the second part I would say, especially for somebody who's doing it on their own, is to get a professional to focus on your marketing. Find an agency, vet out, make sure that they've got some good references and they know their stuff, because there's a lot of people out there who ran Facebook ads once, had a little bit of success, and they call themselves now an agency. So don't get kind of caught into that. Especially don't get caught in with low prices or something like that. Find somebody who can really help and let a professional do that. I used to use the same thing. Like we won best cheesecake in our bakeries, best cheesecake in New Jersey. We had really, really great products, right? If I went into the bakery and started making the cheesecakes, the business would have been dead. Gone,
that award would have just gone so quickly.
Right. So I knew where my focus, and that's what they, as business owners, you need to know that, right? If they're making a really great product, or if they're manufacturing, or if they're whatever it is, right? Focus on that. Why did you get in business? You didn't get in business to be a marketer, Let a marketer take that, and that's where you're going to create a lot of time savings. You're going to create a lot of efficiency, and they're going to know how to help you build some of that data, or they should, if you find the right agency. Build some of that data, build your own database, and start to create something that can, a real platform that can grow.
Yeah, excellent. Ian, listen, thank you so much for coming on. If anyone wants to get in touch with you, speak to you more about data and how you can help them, what's probably the best way for them to get in touch with you?
So the best way is our website, which is eastmainco.com. So it's eastmainco.com, and we actually just redid the site to reflect better this approach and the data that we have. And so there's a lot of information on there. My email address is simply ian@eastmainco.com. Anybody who wants to reach out, and again, I have no problem just helping, especially in this time. And there's so many people who are looking to just figure out how to make it through. Yeah, happy to have a conversation just in how to help, even if it's a DIY type approach for right now.
Super nice of you, Ian. Thank you so much for coming on. Like I said, I feel like we could chat about data for the next 100 years if we wanted to. I find it so fascinating, and cool. I always have. Thank you so much for coming on, and thanks everyone for listening and watching. This has been Founders 365.
Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate it.
Cheers, Ian.
All right.